Hello and welcome to Stretch and Flex. This is a participatory webinar and you will have the opportunity throughout this presentation to stand up and flex. If you can, we recommend that you use a speaker or hands-free phone. Wear comfortable shoes, and if you already came into work and you have some heels on, please feel free to do these exercises in either your bare feet or your socks. So we're going to get started in a few minutes, and we hope you can find a comfortable place to stretch and flex. My name is Jessica Johnson. I am a senior wellness consultant at the Stay Fit Plan, and I've spent the last 20 years of my career empowering individuals to embrace a healthy lifestyle. I am extremely passionate about this particular subject. As a certified yoga instructor, I know firsthand that stretching is important not only for our body but for our mind. And so I'm really excited to share this presentation with you today and hope you get a lot from it. This webinar is information, health information only. It does not replace or, any relationship that you might have with your physician. So please, throughout the day while you're doing the exercises here, if you should feel anything more than a stretch and it turns into something more painful, please stop at any point in time or dial back the stretch. And you can also use your breath as a barometer. If you start getting labored breathing, you'll also know that perhaps you've gone too far into the stretch. So when we go into those stretches, I'll do my best to kind of walk you through, but invite you, if you feel any pain, to stop any activity at that time and always speak to your physician before beginning an exercise program. Our learning objectives today are really going to be that we're going to understand the hazards of prolonged sitting to both your body and to your emotional health. And we'll get into a lot of the research that's out there about why being sedentary is not good for your body and what the hazards are. We're also going to go into some simple and effective exercises and tips on how you can reduce the impacts of a sedentary lifestyle. We are going to do stretch, strength, and movement activities. And at the end of this, you'll be able to download resources. They're Stay Fit Stretch and Flex guides. They share two things. One is an overall poster of the different stretches and flexes that are part of the Stay Fit Stretch and Flex program. We also have a resource document that goes into each stretch series that we do in this presentation. So hopefully you'll have access to that and you'll be able to use what you learned today in your daily life. So is sitting really harmful for you? Well, there's been a lot of studies out there recently, and if you were to do an internet search about the hazards of sitting, what you'd find is some pretty interesting articles titled things like "Sitting is the new smoking" or "Sitting is killing you." And, where do these things come from? Well, there's been, like I said, a lot of research out there, and that research has really brought about what I find to be the three most important findings. And they are that studies have shown that regardless of the exercise that you do, if you sit more than 6 hours a day, that's hazardous to your health, and there are certain chronic conditions that you can develop as a result of being sedentary. And that was a real big wake-up moment for me because, like many other people, while I'm committed to exercise and I get my 30 minutes in, which is what your recommendations are, is 30 minutes a day, I also have a job where I sit down often. And what the studies showed is that if you're doing your 30 minutes of required activity and then you go and either remain sitting all day or standing in a sedentary position, you're still at risk. The other thing that came out of many of these studies is that the impacts of sedentary behavior, the reason that it's so bad for your health is due to low energy expenditure. So many of you hear about, when you start learning more information about exercising or nutritional programs, they talk about energy in, so it's the calories that you take in. Well, energy out is all of the activities that you do physically throughout the day. So, whether it be you're up and walking, that has a higher calorie expenditure or energy expenditure than sitting sedentary. Just like running would have more energy expenditure than walking. So we're going to take a look at today some ways that you can kind of increase your energy expenditure by doing little things throughout your day. And then the other thing that really came out of this research and the basis of this entire presentation today is that 3 to 5 minutes of activity, if you do little as 3 to 5 minutes of activity throughout your day, that you can reverse those impacts. And things like, standing up during your conference calls, getting up and making sure that you walk, or parking farther away in your parking lot. So all of those things that you can do throughout the day to kind of change your dynamics if you have a job where you sit down majority of the day. I really like this slide here, the evolution of the workday, because it really showcases how our bodies weren't designed to sit as the gentleman in the last picture. Our bodies were really designed years ago to do the hunting and the gathering and the things that our ancestors did. And so the real reason that sitting all day is so bad for your health is that your body was simply not designed to sit still for that long. And so sedentary behavior is bad for your health, but there are things that you can do to kind of to make changes to that. And some of the research that is out there is by James Levin, Dr. James Levin, who's a PhD, and he pioneered research on what is called non-exercise thermogenesis. And the acronym for that is NEAT, N-E-A-T. And what that is NEAT, or non-exercise thermogenesis, is it's all the basic definitions and it's all the little things that you do throughout the day that are not quite vigorous enough to be considered exercise, but when they add up through the day, you have done enough activity to break up the sedentariness and also to increase your energy expenditure. So what we talked about the first time. So it's those little spontaneous and frequent activities that you do throughout the day that can make a change to your metabolic profile and also reduce your risk. Some things like, it takes energy to smile, to get up and to move, to walk, like I said, parking further from your car. So you take those things and you do them throughout the day, and there you have increased the amount of energy expenditure that you have, and therefore you start reducing the impacts that you would get from being sedentary for too long. So what is your current status? Well, 86% of the American workforce sits 7.7 hours per day, and that's according to the American Journal of Epidemiology. And then if you kind of look past just those working hours and you look at the amount of time that you spend seated in your commute to work, you take a look at the amount of time that you sleep or that you spend sitting at your television when you get home at night. And that factors out to the average U.S. adult spending about 10 hours a day sitting. So we're looking at 63% of our wake hours in some sort of sedentary position. So as we're going through this webinar today, one of my challenges to you, given the statistics and how harmful being sedentary is I want you to think about how many hours of your workday you spend seated. And we're going to give you some tips on how you can reduce that. How many of your leisure hours do you spend seated? And so again, we'll give you some tips on how to reduce that as well. And then I want you to think about, not from here forward, how you can decrease the amount of time you spend seated. And we're going to do some exercises today that will hopefully give you some ideas of what you can do. But I'd like you to expand upon that with what things would work into your day and make it be things that you'll enjoy doing so that you'll actually get up and do them. So now we're going to start our first stretch, and it's going to be a full body stretch. So I invite you to stand up. Again, if you have on shoes that are not comfortable, you want to just slip those off. You'll also want to stand with your feet about hip distance apart. Go ahead and stretch your arms out to the side and in front and in back of you, and that way you have enough space around you to complete these stretches. You're going to interlace your fingers at your chest with your knuckles facing up. I want you to take a nice deep breath in, and on the exhale, you're going to press your palms away from you with your arms shoulder height. Great. Take a bend in your knee. Just get really comfortable here. We're going to do each of these movements to some breath work. So on your next inhale, reach your arms overhead just like the woman in the photo. And on the exhale, go ahead and relax your shoulders away from your ears. Good. Now take another deep breath in. And this time on the exhale, I want you to bring your arms towards the right, creating a C shape with your body. Good. Just relax and continue to breathe nice and steady here. Now feel the stretch here from your left fingertips down the exterior of your left arm, left side body, the outside of your leg, and then press into your left foot a little more and see if you can increase that stretch. Take another deep breath in, and on the exhale, see if you can come any further into that stretch. Great, and on the inhale, come all the way up to standing. Exhale, relax your shoulders. And we're going to do the other side. So take a deep breath in, reach your arms up. And on the exhale, this time bend over to your left. Let your breath be nice and constant. So nice, easy breaths in and out. And this time feel your stretch from your right fingertips, the outside of your right arm, right torso, down the outside of your right leg, and then press your right foot into the ground a little more. Nice. Take another deep breath in, and on the exhale, see if you can come any further into the stretch. Inhale, return to standing, and on the exhale, just bring your hands down by your side. Go ahead and shake your arms and your legs out, and we're going to return to that and do that stretch series one more time, except this time we're going to do one movement to each breath. So again, take your feet hip distance apart, bend your knees slightly and interlace your fingers at your chest. Take a deep breath in, and on the inhale, rise your arms overhead. On the exhale, bend over to the right. On the inhale, come back up to center. On the exhale, over to the left. On the inhale, back up to center. And on the exhale, release your hands. Great. We're going to try that just one more time. Interlace the fingers. Inhale, rise your arms up. Exhale, bend to the right. Inhale to the center. Exhale to the left. Inhale to the center. Exhale, release your arms. Great. So hopefully you felt some of the benefits of stretching in that very short series. And some of them include reducing your muscle tension, increasing the range of motion in your joints, enhancing muscle coordination. You're going to increase the circulation of blood throughout your entire body and increase your energy level. So hopefully you felt some of that while you did that short stretch, and hopefully that'll also be eye-opening to, it doesn't take a lot of room, it doesn't take a lot of space, and it doesn't take a lot of time to add little incremental movements throughout your day, such as a full body stretch. So what are the impacts of sedentary lifestyle? Well, it's true. Sitting all day, it just really doesn't feel good in your body. And you can see that the second gentleman there who's kind of holding his back, perhaps you've sat down on a project for a long time in the day and you might feel like that, or you've been driving all day and you feel really kind of just sluggish. It makes you feel not wanting to do anything when you sit for long periods of time, and that's almost a vicious cycle of just, you sit, you want to sit more. The good news is if you stand, you want to stand more too. So so, you know, it's true. The impacts of sitting too long are in fact true. There was a Canadian study, and it's one of the studies that really grabbed everyone's attention, and it was in 2009, where they took a look at 17,000 men and women. And what the study showed is that the people within the study that sat for 6 hours or longer, they had a mortality risk that was 1.5 times higher compared to those who spent less time seated. And that was regardless of fitness level. So regardless of the fact that someone got up and did 30 minutes of exercise, if they still sat for 6 hours or more, they had a higher mortality rate than those who didn't. Not to say that exercise is not helpful, because it absolutely is, but it did show that being sedentary alone was a risk, and that was what was really important. So in the next 3 slides, we're going to go into the details of what impacts are to your physical health, the health conditions that are correlated with being sedentary, and also what the emotional risks are for being sedentary for long periods of time. And let's start out with the physical health. So you've got this nice infographic here from CBC News, and it shows the impacts to your physical body for sitting too long. So you take a look, and let's start from the ground up. So you think about your legs, and you know, a lot of people know that seated too long is associated with varicose veins. Well, why is that? The fluid collects in your legs when you're sitting for too long. The good news about that is by getting up and moving, you actually pump the fluid out of the legs, and you know, you can kind of decrease the amount of fluid that sits there in the legs. The other thing is the stomach. You know, it talks a lot about people who are sedentary. There's no surprise that it contributes to obesity. It also contributes to colon cancer. And why is that? Well, when you're sitting too long, your hips go into flexion, and the muscles in your core that kind of move things around through the body, they turn off. It shuts off, and your body is not metabolizing fuels such as glucose and lipids the way that it would be if you were up and moving around. Your arms and your legs, when they're not moving, you're not pumping your fluids as they should, and there's risk of hypertension and high blood pressure. Your lungs, as we all know, those who don't exercise, the fluid backs up in the lungs as well. So, you know, you could do some walking around. You're going to increase not only your lungs, your cardiovascular, and also your respiratory system by doing it. So we all know that heart disease is associated with being sedentary. And for people who sit for long periods of time, another thing is sleep apnea, and that's moving up to the head and the neck and the lungs. And what was surprising to me is I thought a lot of the sleep apnea that's associated with being sedentary was due to not having enough energy expenditure. Well, it's not necessarily just that. It's some of the fluid that's been building up in the legs and the lungs and the arms. When you lay down at night to rest, that fluid needs somewhere to go, and it moves into the neck area, and that's why you have a lot of challenges with sleeping when you're in sedentary positions for long times, on top of the low energy expenditure. And then the last one it talks about is the clots that can travel up. So your blood kind of gets if you had any clotting in that area and you're sitting for too long, it can travel up towards the brain, causing strokes and such. The good news about all of this, and none of that was meant to scare you, but more to show you what some of those impacts are to your physical body, is that you can reduce the impacts to your physical health by doing a few things. First of all, increasing the level of activity. So, like I said, we're going to take a look at some ways that you can do that. Maintaining a normal body weight, always really important for good health, is to be in that normal body weight. And then lastly is reducing the amount of time that you spend sedentary. So we'll discuss that later on in the presentation about some different ways that you can go about doing that. So what are the health conditions that are associated with being sedentary? Well, I'm not going to go through the full list with you here. You can read what they are. What I'd like to do instead is go through a little bit of a timeline to kind of put how it came to be known that these particular health conditions were in fact associated with sedentary behavior. Back in 2002, the World Health Organization listed inactivity or sedentary lifestyle as the leading global causes of death and disability. So that's really important here. So it specifically listed out inactivity as being a risk for death and disability. Next, you're looking at 2007 when the U.S. Surgeon General came out and warned us about the importance of physical activity, saying that it reduced your risk of premature death, coronary heart disease, hypertension, colon cancer, and type 2 diabetes. And again, you can start to see that some of the health conditions that are associated with sedentary, it's not surprising that they're also due to inactivity. So you start taking a look at type 2 diabetes, obesity, metabolic syndrome, hypertension. They all kind of factor in towards one another and having to do with not being active and not expending the amount of energy that you need to. And then in 2011, the American Diabetes Association released a study called Sedentary Activity Associated with Metabolic Syndrome is Independent of Physical Activity. So this goes back to one of that first slides that we covered where it was talking about independent of you doing the 30 minutes of recommended physical activity. And that's really important, and it really caught my attention, like I said, because it shows how disruptive being sedentary is, and that it isn't just for people who are not doing exercise. It impacts you too if you do your exercise, but then you continue to sit majority of the day. And then finally, we're going to take a look at the impacts to your physical, not only your physical health, but also your emotional health. Well, just like your body, your brain needs strong blood flow, good oxygenation, and optimal glucose metabolism to work efficiently. Being sedentary has been associated with increased psychological distress. So anxiety and depression. There's studies that show that people who sit for longer than 6 hours a day reported higher rates of depression, anxiety, and feelings of well-being or decreased feelings of well-being than those people who sat less than 4 hours a day. There's also a neuroscience confirms that being sedentary also reduces your cognitive performance. Well, one of my favorite studies that is related or that correlates with this is that, and we'll talk a little more about the stand-up workstations later on, but one of the things that came out of the stand-up workstation was a study that was done at Texas A&M Health Science Center. And they were doing research on standing workstations or standing desks in the school, and they were looking at it not for sedentary behavior. They were looking at it for ways to reduce obesity and the impacts of obesity on children. Well, what they found is that those people who were using the stand-up desk, they had an increased cognitive function. And, that's really neat. I mean, so you're going to have the benefits not only of reducing your risk to your physical body, but you're also boosting your mental and creative powers as well as decreasing any any emotional or psychological distress that's associated with being sedentary. So you have lots of good reason to do it. And one of my favorite quotes that came out of that research was by the lead researcher, and it was Bendon, PhD, who had stated that, simply put, we think better on our feet than on our seat. And I think that that's a great way to kind of wrap up this slide. And now we're going to get into our second series of actual movement. So we're going to do some upper body stretches. And while I'm kind of chatting a little bit, invite you all to stand up and to get ready to do some upper body stretches. So we're going to, again, start with our feet hip distance apart. You always want to have a slight bend in your knees so you're not hyperextending your knees or locking them. And we're going to start with a real simple activity called shoulder shrugs. And I put it in here for two reasons. One is you can do this seated, so I liked that. And the other is later on we're going to talk about that the CDC recommends this for truck drivers because it's something that they can do seated to break up the monotony of staying still for too long. So here we're just going to relax our shoulders down by our side. Our arms can be down with palms facing in. You're going to take a deep breath in, and as you do, you're going to bring your shoulders up to your ears. And on the exhale, you're going to relax your shoulders down. Good. Do that 2 more times. On the inhale, bring your shoulders up. You can even squeeze your hands together. And on the exhale, relax them down and open up your hands. Good. 1 more time. Bring your shoulders up towards your ear on the inhale. And on the exhale, bring them down. And now we're going to add a little movement to that. So some shoulder circles. On the inhale, you're going to roll your shoulders up. And on the exhale, you're going to bring them behind you and down. So getting a little into the back here. Inhale, bring your shoulders up. Exhale, round them behind you and down. 1 more time. Inhale, bring them up. And on the exhale, bring your shoulders towards each other and down. And then reverse that. On the inhale, bring them up from behind you. And on the exhale, round your shoulders forward and down. 2 more times. Inhale, bring your shoulders back and up. Exhale, bring them around and down. And 1 last time. Inhale, bring them around and up. Exhale, roll them forward and down. And go ahead and just shake your arms out. This next one is a nice neck stretch, and it's really nice, especially if you've been seated for a long period of time. Your neck starts to hurt, especially for those of us who sit at a computer and our head protrudes forward. So this has quite a few benefits to it. And hopefully you'll take the advice of the picture here and my encouragement to go ahead and close your eyes during this one. So start with your feet hip distance apart. Take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, bring your right shoulder towards your right ear. And then, if you haven't already, go ahead and close your eyes. You're going to take that right hand, you're going to reach it overhead and grab a hold of your left ear. Just don't tug on the neck here. Just let the weight of the arm be enough to just add a little increase to your stretch. Now take your left hand and you're going to kind of shoot your arm with your fingers pointing down, and then reach it up a little until you feel a deeper stretch in the left neck. And 1 more stretch here. You're going to take a deep breath in, and then on the exhale, you're going to tuck your chin towards your chest, and you'll feel that stretch now across the back side of the left neck. Good. Take 1 more deep breath here. And then roll your shoulder back, your ear back to your right shoulder. Relax that left arm down. Take your right hand, release it from your head, and go ahead and cup your right ear. Take a nice deep breath in, and on the exhale, use the weight of your hand to push your head back to starting position. Good. And now we're going to do the other side. So relax both hands down by your side. Take a deep breath in, and on the exhale, bring your left ear to your left shoulder. Close your eyes if you'd like. Reach that left hand over and grab a hold of your right ear. And let the weight of the hand and the arm do the work. Now point your fingers of your right hand down towards the floor and then just lift it slightly till you feel a deeper stretch in the right neck. And then to get into that back of your neck, take a deep breath in and on the exhale, tuck your chin towards your chest. Good. Next inhale, return your left shoulder, your left ear to your left shoulder. Release that right hand. Release your left hand and now cup your left ear. Take a deep breath in and on the exhale, let the weight of your hand push your head back to starting position. And if you haven't already, open your eyes. And we've got one more stretch for the upper body. It is a rotator cuff stretch. It is also a good exercise to show you how tight you might be in the shoulder. Please don't be surprised if your hands do not touch like the first picture of the lady in red. Chances are, if your hands do touch, they may only touch on one side but not the other. And that is why you'll notice in the second picture below, the lady is holding on to a towel of some kind. So if you have a piece of fabric next to you, that works well. A ruler or a pen also works good in this exercise, as well as if you have a yoga strap. It is a great way to do this exercise without straining or putting too much effort towards reaching your hands together. We're going to once again start with our feet hip distance apart. And I'm going to give you some pretty specific instructions here if you just follow along. We're going to reach our right hand overhead with our palm facing towards the front of whatever room you're in. And then you're going to reach your left arm shoulder height out to the side with your thumb up in the air. Take a deep breath in and on the exhale, take that left thumb and point it down towards the floor. That's going to put your shoulder in a better space for this exercise. Now you're going to reach your left hand around and move it as far up your back as you can, just like that top picture. And then you're going to take your right hand and see if you can reach it towards your left hand. Now for many of us, our belly will protrude here as we try to reach for our hands. Bend your knees and draw your belly button in. Now relax both shoulders. And take a few breaths. You can even close your eyes here if that feels okay. Great. And then to release this stretch, we're going to start by releasing that left hand. Then reach your right arm overhead and just bring your right arm back down to the side. Go ahead and shake the arms out. And we'll follow the same instructions this time on your left-hand side. So you're going to start by reaching your left hand up overhead with your palm facing towards the front of the room. This time you'll stretch your right arm to the side, shoulder distance, thumb towards the ceiling, and then rotate your thumb down towards the floor. Take your right hand, bend the elbow, and come as far up your back with your hand, palm facing away from your back. And then bend your left hand and reach your hands towards one another. Now, I don't know about you, but for me, this side does not reach. The one side does, but the other does not. If I try to force it, I'll notice my breath becomes really labored. So I'm just going to relax my shoulders. I'm going to walk my hands up the strap or the ruler or whatever you got a hold of, maybe your clothing. I'm going to pull my belly button in and close my eyes and take a few deep breaths here. And then to come out of this, first I'm going to release that right hand. I'm going to stretch my left hand back overhead. And then I'm going to return both of my arms down to my side. Shake out my arms and my legs and I invite you to stick around for the rest of the presentation where we get into how you can reduce your sedentary time at home, at work, and on the road. So reducing your sedentary time. We've got a nice infographic here from Dr. David Altsler, who is a senior scientist at the Toronto Rehab Institute, talking about ways that you can reduce your sedentary time. Well, let's just start here with when we work, you want to stand up and move around 1 to 3 minutes for every half hour that you spend seated. Now, there's different research that shows different things. Other research has shown that 3 to 5 minutes for every 60 to 90 minutes. So that's what I like to use, is 3 to 5 minutes for every 60 minutes, because for me it would be too disruptive to get up every single half an hour. A lot of times I'm doing something that's concentrated, and that's just not realistic for me. Stand up and exercise, or exercise when you're watching TV. Another great tip. Monitor your sitting time. So set achievable goals to reduce the amount of time you spend seated a little every week. We'll get into, there is a slide in here that talks about some apps that you can use. Nowadays, most people have smartphones, not everyone, but a lot of them have good monitors to reduce your sedentary time and give you alerts when you've been sitting too long, to give you that friendly reminder to stand up and move. We're going to aim for 2 to 3 hours fewer in a 12-hour day. And then, of course, to avoid sedentary times, things like getting regular exercise is both important for your health and your survival. So hopefully we've given you a few exercises. We're going to do one more later on, but we're also going to give you some ideas on how you can do that next. So reducing your sedentary time at work. Well, one of our suggestions here is that you schedule some regular stretch and flex breaks. So, you can set a reminder in your Outlook calendar, perhaps, that every 90 minutes you get up, and even if it's, get up and move, take a walk, go grab a glass of water is probably also a great suggestion. But you want to take a look at how you can break that up. We spoke about it a little bit before, but ergonomic workstations, stand-up workstations, are becoming really popular these days. Those are great ways to do it. And if you don't have a stand-up workstation, which a lot of us don't, you can still do other things like just standing up to take your conference call. Or I was doing this webinar a little bit ago and got some great suggestions, and one of them was, when someone comes into this woman's office, she stands up and greets them, and then, continues to remain standing for the first 5 to 10 minutes that they're in her office. So again, great ways that you can do it. Getting back to that ergonomic workstation, I just want to make sure that I hit upon this, and one of the reasons that the ergonomic workstation is so effective for reducing sedentary time is when you're standing up, we have a tendency to shift our weight from side to side. It's just a natural way of us being standing for too long. Well, that shifting your weight from side to side really reduces the amount of time you're spending sedentary. So great way to do that. And it also, because of that, it decreases fatigue and increases our sense of well-being. Walking meetings. So if this is not currently used at your place of work, maybe something you want to consider. Lots of focus lately on lots of companies that do offer walking meetings, and there's actually some research behind it. Some by Stanford University that found out through their research that the creative output increases by an average of 60% when you're walking. Another good reason to do it is Johnson & Johnson, their wellness and prevention group, did a study on the advantages of walking meetings. And what they did is they took a group of people and they had them do walking meeting for 90 days. And what participants reported at the end of that is that they felt an increase in the amount of energy. It increased amounts of focus and improved their engagement. And I don't know about you, but for me, you know, sometimes, especially if it's a conference call, it's very easy to multitask when you're in a meeting. So by getting up and walking, you're more engaged with the person because you don't have the ability to do that multitasking. So, you know, two benefits here. You're going to reduce the sedentary time, and you're going to feel more energetic and more engaged. And, of course, there's always taking the stairs, and that last one I just think is so brilliant, because if you've got a conference call, you know, even if you don't have a stand-up workstation, that is something that you can do to kind of reduce the amount of time you're spent seated. So hopefully those things will resonate with you. Reducing sedentary time on the road. So, you know, being behind a desk isn't the only way that we sit. Many of us sit for long hours if it is our work to be on the road. Or if we just have a long commute at work, or we're taxi at home to our family, being behind the wheel of a car has that same amount of risk if you're doing it for too long at a time. So, you know, before we go into some of the suggestions here, I just want to remind you, you know, you're always going to operate your vehicle within your company policy and within the state laws. So just be conscientious of that, and you're never going to exercise while you are operating a vehicle. Things like shrugging your shoulders at a stoplight, okay. Full out exercise is a no. But here is some of the suggestions here, and it is that you would schedule regular stops during long trips to stretch and flex and move, breaks like that. And that is also supported by the CDC, the Center of Disease Control. They did a report in 2015 of 1,670 truck drivers. And what they found was that 69% of them were obese and 17% of them morbidly obese. Well, obesity increases your risk for type 2 diabetes, sleep apnea, heart disease. So you can see everything starts to kind of work together. You reduce, you know, you have low energy output, you increase your health risk. And now when you're sitting for long periods of time, and especially for truck drivers, you know, there's a lot of, you know, not having access to nutrition. And that's not today's webinar, but that also factors into this. But, you know, when you're sitting for long periods of time and that's your job is to get from point A to point B, you don't have the same options that you do when you are sitting at a desk. You can't really stand up for that quick stretch. And what happens is your hips, they go into flexion. And we talked a little bit about this when we were looking at the impacts to your physical body. When your hips go into flexion like that and you're shutting off the muscles in your core, it impacts how we circulate blood, oxygen, and how we metabolize glucose. So what the CDC came out with for their recommendation was that if you are driving for long periods of time, that you stop the vehicle at a minimum of every 4 hours to get up, to stretch, to strengthen, to move your body. The CDC also recommended a habit of fidgeting. So you'll see that as the last bullet there. And that's, you know, yes, like tapping the steering wheel, moving around a little in your seat. It's going to not only break up the monotony of sitting for long periods of time, it's also going to increase your energy output, and it's also going to burn some calories. So fidgeting is recommended by the CDC for truck drivers. And then the center one there is, you know, the idea of creating a to-go kit, whether it is your job or you just have one in your vehicle. You know, this is a convenient way that you can kind of put together a small kit of things that you need, you would need in your vehicle to be active if you wanted to stop. A jump rope works nicely because it's easy to travel. Some small weights. I know for me, I always have a Frisbee, a ball, and some sneakers in there because I have a dog. So, you know, what things can you keep in your vehicle that if you were going to be in your vehicle for a long period of time, that you could actually stop, get out of your vehicle, and do some movement. And then the last one here is talking about reducing your sedentary time at home. Well, we already talked a little bit about the idea of standing up during commercials. Last time I was on the webinar, I had someone who made the recommendation that, you know, with the way that, you have a lot of technology now. Someone was stating that what she does is she likes to record her favorite television shows and actually watch them on her iPad when she's doing the elliptical. So, there are different ways that you can kind of still get in that favorite TV show, but you can also not be sitting down, especially if you've been sitting all day at work. Things like walking your children, your spouse, your dog. If you have a dog at home, it's a very convenient excuse to get you up and moving, and usually is only that 3 to 5 minutes. Longer, of course, if your dog needs to get some energy out. But again, great excuse to get up and be active. If you like to have a clean house, which I particularly do, 3 to 5 minute chores every day. If you kind of get up and do some vacuuming, some dusting, or whatever it is that you do, and if you've got family members at home and you care about them sitting too long, you can give them some chores, and that'll help everything, right? Finding time to dance around the house. I know for me, putting on music usually helps with cleaning the house, but also getting ready in the morning. You hear a good song, you're just a little more apt to kind of dance around a little bit. I liked this line here from the Planet Fitness commercials, the commercials where he says, "I pick things up, I put them down." So, everything helps. So pick up your groceries, pick up your laundry, pick up your trash, pick up your kids. Whatever it is, the more you do, the more energy expenditure you have, the better you feel, the less risk you have of being sedentary. And then yard work. So what else can you think of at home that you can do that would decrease the monotony of sitting for too long and get you up and moving? We're going to move into our last series of stretches, and these are stretches for your lower body. Recommendation here is that you use something stable for balance. So whether it is a desk or a chair, my only disclaimer here is if you do use a chair and it's got wheels, if you would please lock those wheels or stabilize them by pushing the chair up against the wall as the woman in red is in that second picture. We are going to start with that quadriceps stretch. So I invite you to stand up, shake out your legs. You're going to take them hip distance apart again with a slight bend in the knee. We're going to do all 3 stretches here on one leg and then switch to the other. So right now, if you would just shift your weight into your left foot and come up onto the toes of your right. Take both hands and place it on either a wall, desk, or chair. And then release your right hand. You're going to bend your right knee and reach back for your right foot or ankle. Now bend that left knee a little more so you're not hyperextending at the knee. And see if you can get your knees to sit flush like the gentleman in the first picture. So knee toward knee. Good, and then just feel that stretch across the front of your quadricep, the front of your leg, the muscles that are there. Good, take a few deep breaths here. And from here, we're going to move into that standing lunge. I'm going to invite you to release that right hand, stabilize it on the wall, desk, or chair, and extend that right foot all the way behind you. Great. Now take a look down at your left foot and just see that your foot is in front of your knee, and if it isn't, just adjust it back. You want your knee to be directly over your ankle. Take a deep breath in and rise up on that right back foot. And on the exhale, I want you to press your heel towards the ground and then squeeze your inner thighs together. And then if you're using the wall, what you can do is if you push the wall away and pull your abdominals in, you're going to also feel the stretch across your upper, middle, and lower back. And then we're going to move into that final stretch here. You're going to take that right foot behind you and you're going to step it in about 5 inches from your left foot. You're going to shift your weight onto your right foot and flex your left foot. And so your hands can go right on your right quadricep there. And if you remember that first stretch we did from earlier, the full body, you can interlace your fingers at your chest and then press your palms away, leaving them shoulder height. And if you tuck your chin, you're also going to feel that stretch across the upper, middle, and lower back. Great. Now sit back a little bit more into that right leg. Flex that left foot. Relax your arms. Stand all the way up. Shake out your legs and get ready to do that series on your left side. So once again, starting hip distance apart, create a stable place to balance your hands. Shift your weight this time into your right foot. Come up onto your left toes. Bend your left knee, reach your left hand around. Good. Bend the right knee a little more. See if you can line the knees up. And if you want to practice balance, and you can release your right hand, you feel the small muscles in your ankle just try to stabilize you. It's a good balance exercise too. So if you've released your hands, bring both of your hands back to a wall or desk or chair, and then extend that left leg directly behind you. Look down once again at your right knee and be sure it's not over your toes. If it is, adjust it so that your knee is over your ankle. And this time come up onto your left toes. And on the exhale, bring the left heel towards the floor and squeeze your inner thighs together. Good reminder here to also pull your abdominals in. And go ahead and push the wall away from you. Tuck your chin to your chest. Feel that stretch across your back. And then we're going to get ready to go into that final stretch for your hamstring and calf. Step your left foot in a few inches. Transfer your weight into your left foot and flex your right foot. So if you enjoyed that stretch to your back here, you can interlace the fingers and press the palms out. Tuck your chin. And then sit back a little more into that left leg. Flex your right foot a little more. Great. And then release the whole thing. Shake everything out. And then either have a seat or remain standing for the final slides in the presentation. So there's an app for that. This is a slide that I have referenced a few times here about all the different fun tools we have now in our smartphones. And I like to take those apps and put it into 3 categories to reduce sedentary time. And the first one is idle alert. So it's reminders when you've been sitting too long. And there are, things on your Apple Watch if you have one. Fitbits use idle alerts. If you don't have one of those, you can also use your Outlook for reminders. So those are great ways to kind of reduce sedentary time. The other thing they have is sitting calculators, which help you determine how much time you've been spending seated. One of those is called the Time Out app, and will help you figure out how long you've been sitting for. And then the last one are activity apps. So those things that help you track the amount of activity that you do or provide you with exercises. So think about your Fitbit, your Withings, those sort of apps. I'm a fan of that 1-minute desk workout. It just gives you some quick ideas. These 3 exercises, while they're a great place to start, after a while you might want to incorporate some other movements into your day. So a great way to just kind of find places with different suggestions and ideas to incorporate into your day. So we're not going to do any of these movement activities, and this list is not the only movement activities. I just wanted to give you some suggestions or some things that you might be able to do either at your workstation or, somewhere in the privacy if you can find a place to kind of incorporate. These are great 3 to 5 minute exercises. Jumping rope, doing sun salutations, yoga movements with breath, jumping jacks, plank exercises. You might have heard there's great plank challenges where you build up to 3 minutes a day and a plank seems like forever. Can you run in place, take the stairs? There's desk push-ups, walking lunges, dancing, hula hoop. Basically what it boils down to is, what activities are you going to incorporate into your day that are going to resonate with you and that are going to make you want to get up and move? Because that's what's going to be most effective. So we encourage you to think about what it is that you enjoy doing and then build those activities into your day. And then the last slide here is a little bit of office humor. So I think sometimes when I saw the slide, of course, I thought this is probably how people have looked at me for years. And if your office workouts are starting to freak people out, I applaud you. So hopefully you'll take some of that stuff from today, the 3 exercises that we did, some of the movement activities, get some of the apps, create some routine into your day that encourages you to get out of your seat. If you can encourage others around you, you're going to feel better. You're going to reduce your risk, and hopefully it's going to increase your energy and make you feel a lot better. We have resources here to help. So take 5 Stretch and Flex. It gives you some quick activities. There's also resources here on upper, mid, and lower body stretches. Please use these to build your own program and something that will work for you. And while we're not going to get into much time, we've run really quickly on this for question and answers. If you do have any question and answers, you can certainly submit this to Simplicity Info. stayfitinfo@simplicityhealth.com. We thank you so much for attending this webinar today. I hope you take some of these activities and build a program into your day that encourages you to get up and move. And it has been an absolute pleasure to spend the last hour with you. Thank you and have a great day.